Finally, we have made it here, the last part of the series where I put every single character from Sonic into Marvel Rivals. I just have to say thank you guys so much for all of the support that you guys have given me. I've read every single one of you guys' comments. I've tried to respond to every single one of you guys. You guys have left amazing critiques. We more than doubled our subscriber count. We were at 260 by the time of the first part, and now we are at 720 subscribers. That's crazy to me. Thank you guys so much again. I also read your guys' comments on the characters that you guys want to see for the potential part 4. And I will say right now that if we get to 1,000 subscribers, I will definitely release the part 4. I want to try to limit myself to 10 to 12 characters just so the video isn't that long. So I'll be picking the ones that are most requested. And at the end of the part 4, when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will make a mega collection video with every single character in one video, so you don't want to miss out on that. But stick around to the end of the video where I elaborate more on that. Alright guys, let's not waste any more time. This is every single Vanguard in Sonic Rivals. Our first Vanguard is our boy Knuckles the Echidna. As much as I can see Knuckles being a duelist, he most certainly lines up more with the Vanguard, since he's been shown to be able to take quite a punch, as well as being an overall powerhouse. Knuckles' standard attack is called Knuckle Sandwich, where Knuckles releases a triple punch combo. Knuckles has no projectiles in this game, so let's move over to his abilities. Knuckles has Groundbreaker, in which he leaps into the air and slams down, crumbling the earth in front of him. Enemies caught in the crumbling earth are dealt damage, knock-up, and inflicted with Grounded, which prevents enemies from lifting off the ground for a short time. His next ability is Warrior's Wrath, in which he leaps into the air, dragging any enemies along his flight path, slamming back into the ground, and unleashing a flurry of fast-paced punches. The amount of damage dealt during this attack is dependent on an opponent's overall health. His next ability is Fiery Fist, where Knuckles sets his fist ablaze and delivers a devastating haymaker that deals extra flame damage. Knuckles' final ability is Earthquake, where he tunnels into the ground and pops out immediately. Digging onto enemies grounds them and grants Knuckles slight defense boost. If Knuckles resurfaces on enemies, it deals knockup. He also has a very small chance of finding rings, shields, or invincibility underground when performing this move. Knuckles' passives are Wall Climb and Echidna Glide, where he can perform his iconic action of scaling walls with his sharp knuckles and gliding across distances while falling. His team-up abilities would be with Tikal and Chaos, as they were the last remnants of the Echidna clan. Knuckles shares the power of the Master Emerald in an ability that I'm renaming Enriched by the Heart, granting damage boost to himself and Chaos, and granting Tikal slight healing boost. Finally, Knuckles' ultimate is Dismantle, launching into the air and slamming to the ground, stunning all enemies directly hit for a short amount of time. The shock of his punch releases lava that, if enemies linger within the area, deals 50% of an enemy's remaining health. Knuckles is an incredibly strong Vanguard that has easy to use attacks and abilities. Although Knuckles can't shield himself like other Vanguards, he can give himself damage reduction and search for shield and health for himself with his abilities. He also has high potential to absolutely destroy other Vanguards with his Warrior Wrath. Based on his kit, Knuckles would be a 2-star difficulty hero. With our first Vanguard complete, it's time to close out Knuckles with his treasured MVP screen. Next up is Big the Cat. Big the Cat is a tough and durable character, capable of absorbing blows. Big the Cat unlikely would work a lot like Venom. To see what I mean, let's get into his attacks. Big's standard melee attack is Pole Pummel, where he whacks enemies with his fishing rod. His standard projectile attack is Cast, where Big casts out a fishing line. The lure of the fishing rod can damage multiple enemies in one cast out if the player moves to different targets, much like Mr. Fantastic's punches. If Big deals enough damage with Cast, he will upgrade to a weighted lure that does more damage. If he deals enough damage with the weighted lure, he will upgrade to a spiked lure that deals even more damage. This lasts a short time before reverting back to a normal lure. Moving to Big's abilities, Big can perform the Big Bounce, where he can bounce on his stomach for mobility. If he presses the button again mid-air, he will perform a belly flop that deals damage and knockup. Big's next ability is Entangle, where he connects multiple fishing lines to his belt, placing the other end on enemies within his vicinity. Enemies that are caught on these lines are dealt movement debuff. Enemies that break away from these lines are dealt damage. Big's next ability is Reel It In, where Big casts out a fishing line that wraps around enemies' feet, making them immobile. Big can choose to leave them immobile for a couple of seconds, or press the button again to reel them into his location. This would be a great ability to snatch pesky backliner healers and bring them to the front to be comboed. He would also have the ability called Buff Up to grant himself a bubble shield. Finally, Big's ultimate is called Froggy, Froggy, Froggy! Sonic Movie 4, if you need voice actors for Big, I got you. This ultimate turns this game into a horror game. Froggy hops off of Big's shoulders as the player takes control of him, sticking to a chosen enemy. The enemy that you stick onto suddenly has a shadow appear under them as Big falls onto them in an effort to capture Froggy, KOing any enemy immediately. After which you can control Froggy to hop onto other enemies, to which Big rampages, trampling enemies that Froggy is attached to. This is easily my favorite ultimate in the game and would be hilarious every single time. Big would be used as an effective dive character, bouncing away with Big Bounce and shielding up with Buff Up, disrupting the enemy backlines. His kit would make him yet another 1-star hero. With Big's character card complete, we can close his section out with his relaxing MVP screen. Next is one of my favorite characters, Omega. I think I just really have a thing for Team Dark. Omega is for sure going into Vanguard, and his kit would prove him to be an extremely offensive one at that. Starting with his standard attacks, Omega's melee attack is Claw Slash, where he performs a large swipe at enemies with his metal claws. Moving to his standard attacks, Omega is equipped with a plethora of dangerous weapons that Omega can switch to at will. These are called Annihilate, Charge, and Fire. Annihilate has Omega using his iconic Gatling guns that deal small burst damage and has medium range. Overusing this attack will cause Omega to overheat, disabling him from attacking for a short time, but switching attacks can reset the overheat gauge. If he switches, he can perform Charge, which has Omega firing a laser beam in a sweeping pattern in front of him, which pierces shields and deals damage. His final switch is Fire, which like the name suggests, has Omega using his flamethrowers that deal continuous flame damage. The closer Omega gets to overheating, the more the range and damage output decrease, so it needs to be used sparingly. Moving to Omega's abilities, Omega's first is his missile launch, which launches missiles in front of Omega to deal massive AoE damage. Omega's next ability is Beta Shield, in which Omega can use his gargantuan-sized arms to block incoming melee and projectile damage. Omega's final ability is the Booster Evade, in which Omega performs a sidestep evade with his boosters to avoid damage. Also while evading, Omega can continue to attack. Moving to his passives, he has Scheduled Maintenance, which allows Omega to regenerate a small amount of health periodically. Finally, Omega's ultimate is the Omega Beam Cannon, a gargantuan-sized mega beam that annihilates anything in its way, dealing massive damage to those caught in it. It takes a while to charge up though, much like Scarlet Witch, so you need to use it when Omega has a lot of health. Omega's massive damage output combined with his great defense makes him a fantastic frontline attacker and defender, and his vast arsenal of easy-to-use weaponry makes him a 1-star difficulty hero. With his ability card complete, let's watch 2 of Omega's MVP screens, and trust me, they're not like the worthless consumer models. Vector the Crocodile is next. Vector for sure will go into Vanguard with a lot of his defensive and offensive capabilities stemming from his chewing gum. Starting with his standard attacks, his melee is Croc Chomp, in which Vector uses his powerful bite to chew at enemies. Enemies hit with this melee attack will be marked for Death Roll, which is one of his abilities that we'll get to in a bit. Vector's standard projectile attack is Cinnamon Breath, where Vector chews spicy cinnamon gum to project a stream of fire that deals flame damage. Continuous damage with Cinnamon Breath will upgrade this attack to explosive bubblegum bubbles that Vector projects to deal AoE explosions that deal extra flame damage. Moving to his abilities, Vector's first ability is Death Roll. If enemies are marked with Death Roll from his melee attack, Vector can snatch enemies within his jaw and flip them over multiple times to deal great damage. Vector's main defensive ability is Bubblegum Barrier, which has Vector blowing a large bubble that can shield himself and allies. The shield will start out at 300 HP at a minimum volume. The shield will gradually increase size, and when the volume of the bubble gets to max, it can reach up to 800 HP. If the bubble exceeds its health threshold, the bubble will pop, leaving residue on the ground in the immediate area that inflicts movement debuff on enemies. The larger the bubble when it's popped, the greater the residue area. Moving to his next ability, Vector will have Bubblegum Balloon, which has Vector blowing a bubble that has 200 HP that gradually lifts Vector high into the air. Vector can press the button again in this state to slam back to the ground, dealing damage and knockback. The higher Vector is when performing this attack, the greater the damage output. However, if Vector's bubble gets popped, he will fall to the ground and is unable to slam. Moving to his next ability, Vector can use Chaotic Recital, in which Vector releases a vocal riff that deals damage and stuns enemies for a short time. Only Vector's attacks can release a stun, otherwise enemies remain locked for 3 seconds. Vector's ultimate ability is Feel the Beatdown, which prompts a rhythm-based minigame that players need to complete. Each note played deals damage, but precision of each note will increase the damage. Performing perfect notes will deal much more damage and knockup. Finally, his team-up is a Team Blast with Charmy and Espio. In this Team Blast, Team Chaotix takes to the stage and performs a concert for the remaining 3 allies. The same rhythm game from Vector's ultimate is prompted for Vector, Espio, and Charmy. Vector's efficiency in the minigame gives the remaining 3 allies defense boost, Espio's gives damage buff, and Charmy's gives movement buff. For each enemy that is KO'd by the remaining 3 allies, all teammates will receive 100 rings for health. This Team Blast is devastating as long as Team Chaotix is consistently landing perfect notes. Vector's kit makes him a great frontline defensive tank, able to absorb a ton of damage. He's always got to think about the health of his bubbles, as well as getting in close to death roll enemies that push up too far. This makes Vector a 3-star difficulty hero. With Vector complete, let's watch his jamming MVP screen. Next is the iconic Dr. Iroh Robotnik. Dr. Eggman is always seen battling Sonic in his iconic mechanical masterpieces, and this time is no different. Eggman will don a new battle mech for this game called the Eggwalker Mark II. Starting with his standard attacks, Eggman has his melee attack called Egg Crack, where he leans out of his walker to deliver a heavy punch with his bare fist to enemies. His standard projectile attack is the Vulcan Cannon, which shoots powerful explosive rounds in a straight line. Moving to his abilities, Eggman can launch lock-on missiles that can lock on to all 6 enemies. The more enemies locked on before firing, the higher the damage output and the faster the ultimate gauge will charge up. Eggman can also use Egg Pawn Spawn that lays egg pawns onto the battlefield. These egg pawns can block damage and provide cover for allies. They also shoot projectiles at a slow rate, but only directly in front of them. They can't auto-aim like Infinite's Phantom copies can. Eggman's next ability is Egjection, which is a punching glove that he can deploy that deals damage and massive knockback. Before looking at his team-ups, let's look at Eggman's ultimate. Eggman's ultimate is unique in the fact that he has 3 choices. Since he has created a wide variety of menacing machines in his career, I thought this was appropriate for him. My options are the 3 most iconic ones in his arsenal. The first option is the Egg Dragoon, dealing tremendous damage to enemy players for a brief amount of time. The Egg Dragoon can shoot fire and ice projectiles that deal extra flame and aqua damage respectively. The second is the iconic Death Egg Robot, which allows Eggman to fire powerful lasers that pierce shields and swipe at enemies with spiked hands. If a lot of enemies have elemental shields at the time of this ultimate, you'd ideally want to switch to the Death Egg Robot. The final machine that he can spawn is the dreaded Big Arms Robo, which can block all incoming damage for teammates, including other ultimates with his giant arms. He can also attack with big arms, and also capture enemies to carry them away, potentially throwing them out of bounds. Eggman's team-up is a Team Blast with Metal and Sage called Team Eggman. Sage allows Metal to bond with the Supreme Titan, transforming him into Supreme Metal Overlord. While in this state, Eggman commandeers Metal, guiding his movements, while Metal and Sage shoot dark and light cyber shots respectively and simultaneously. This Team Blast lasts longer than if their ultimates were used separately back to back. Eggman is the pinnacle of a frontline defensive tank with the ability to block damage and keep the enemy team from advancing up too far with Ejection. His powerful projectile attacks allowed allied duelists to finish enemies off with ease. His basic yet useful kit makes him a 2-star difficulty villain. With his abilities out of the way, let's watch his excellent MVP screen. Next to receive their kit is Silver the Hedgehog. Although he may seem like he belongs in Duelists or Strategists, I personally think he best fits the Vanguard category, as we'll see when we get to his abilities. Speaking of which, let's start with the standard attacks. Silver's melee attack is Psionic Strike, which has him generating an energy whip to hit opponents with. His standard projectile attack is Psychic Shot, where Silver generates a psionic projectile to fire at enemies. Moving to his abilities, Silver has the power of Psychokinesis that allows Silver to generate a force field in front of him that blocks and captures all projectile attacks. By pressing the button again, Silver can release the projectiles back at enemies. His second ability is Psychic Knife, which has him firing a large energy wave in front of him that can pierce through enemies. His next ability is Psycho Shock which has Silver slam his hand into the ground, stunning enemies that are too close to him. Stunned enemies can then be thrown with his next ability called It's No Use. If an enemy is slammed into a wall, they are dealt extra damage. Silver's passives include Sigil of Awakening, which is an ability from Project 06. Silver's HP will be much lower than other Vanguards, since he's not as hefty as them. However, this passive sees that Silver fortifies his body with his Psychokinesis that deflects 60% of projectile damage. Silver's final passive is Levitate, where you can fly in a straight line after jumping. Silver teams up with Team Chaotix called Detectives on Duty to highlight enemies' footprints, allowing them to visualize them. The brighter the footprints, the more recent they are. This is good for locating enemies hiding behind structures or enemies that are invisible. Finally, Silver's ultimate is Meteor Smash, where he conglomerates all surrounding debris and absorbs all projectile attacks into a ball. He then can choose when to release it back down onto enemies. The more debris in his ultimate, the more damage it will do, and the wider the radius it will have. Silver is a perfect frontline tank that can shield his allies from projectile attacks. While Silver is particularly vulnerable to melee attacks, his Psycho Shock can stun enemies and can follow up by flinging them backwards to regain distance. His high damage output and versatile abilities land him as a 2-star difficulty hero. With his abilities complete, we can now see the future of his MVP screen. Next is Mighty the Armadillo. Mighty's hard and durable shell makes him an excellent candidate for a Vanguard. Mighty has his normal melee attack called Hard Shell Haymaker, in which he releases a combo of hard-hitting punches. Mighty won't have a standard projectile attack, so let's move over to his abilities. Mighty's first ability is the Battering Ram, where Mighty curls up into a ball and dashes towards enemies, dealing knockup and grounded. While in this state, Mighty can't be damaged, so it's a great move for holding on to the point. Next is his Boulder Blitz, where Mighty unearths a large boulder from the ground and throws it onto the battlefield for area of effect damage and grounded debuff. The boulder will remain on the ground, so allies can use it for cover and also receive a damage reduction when in its vicinity. Last is his main defensive ability called Armor Up. This sees Mighty turn his back towards enemies to block all incoming damage with his impervious shell. Mighty can perform this move indefinitely, but its width is very limited since it's only as big as his body. Mighty also moves very slowly when performing this, and he cannot attack. His frontside can also be dealt damage during this move, so it's important to use this move more selfishly so that you can stall for time for allies to heal you. Switching to Mighty's passive, he has Unflinching Resolve, meaning he cannot be affected by any displacement effects. His passive also includes 50% damage reduction dealt to the backside when not using Armor Up. Mighty has team-ups with Amy and Knuckles called Fastball Special, a move commonly used with Amy and Sonic, where Amy or Knuckles can hit Mighty in his ball form to slam into up to 3 enemies. Finally, Mighty's ultimate is Mighty Mania, where he slams into the ground, causing meteors to rain from the sky and pelt enemies. Enemies hit are dealt massive damage and grounded, making it harder for enemies to escape its radius. Mighty is a great dive Vanguard, with the ability to use his Battering Ram to clear the way and combo exposed Strategists and Duelists, while passively tanking enemy hits to his backside. He is incredible at holding onto points, even when they are contested by the entire team, giving him one of the best survivabilities in the game. His reliable yet easy kit makes him yet another 1-star difficulty hero. With Mighty's abilities complete, let's roll right into his MVP screen. Bark the Polar Bear is up next. Bark is a big guy able to tank hits, even tanking Amy's Pico Pico Hammer, and a direct blow to the head from Knuckles. This gentle giant lands his role as a Vanguard. Since Bark has only been shown in the series to be strong, I wanted to give him some new powers that make him a bit more unique, just like I did with Ray and his Flickies. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think a single character in Sonic has ice powers, and I think these powers suit Bark extremely well for obvious reasons. Starting with his attacks though, Bark has his Husky Hit, where you can use his large arms to deal damage to enemies. He doesn't have any projectiles in this game, since he's mostly a melee fighter, so let's move to his abilities. His first ability is Flatline, in which Bark pounds down on enemies, flattening them. While flattened, enemies cannot move or use attacks. For an enemy though, this is still better than Stun, since while flattened, you have a significantly reduced hitbox. His next ability is Ice Clap, where Bark claps his hands together to unleash a chilling wind that will deal extra aqua damage and freeze a single enemy in a block of ice. After being frozen, attacks can slide an enemy in an ice block. This would be great for pushing enemies off ledges that have no guards for easy KOs. Bark's next ability is Glacial Freeze, where Bark can generate thick walls of ice that can provide cover and block damage for allies. This can also trap enemies, much like Groot's walls. If enemies linger around these walls for too long, they will become frozen. However, if you have an Aqua Shield, that won't be a problem. Moving to Bark's passive called Winter Warrior, after consecutive damage to enemies, Bark will ice up his fists to deal extra aqua damage with his standard attack. Moving to his team-ups, Bark's love of music and money synergizes well with Vector, as well as them both being saltwater animals. I'd imagine they would be really good friends, so in this game I'm going to have them meet and instantly have chemistry. Besides, Bark is only doing bad things when he's coerced by Fang, and in my eyes he's really a hero. Plus I want some more team-ups with the supporting cast, and not just the main cast of Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, and Amy. Bark is Vector's Spearmint Gum, which infuses Vector's Cinnamon Breath with extra aqua damage. Enemies that are repeatedly assaulted by Spearmint Breath will be frozen in a block of ice that can also be hit to slide around. Finally, Bark's ultimate is called No Bark, All Bite, in which Bark generates a large ice crystal that instantly freezes enemies on touch and ignores aqua shields. Bark is an incredible frontline tank that can block a ton of damage for his team with his ice blocks, as well as giving midline duelists plenty of chances for easy hits by freezing enemies. I think Bark having ice abilities is really cool, no pun intended, and his overall kit makes him a 2-star difficulty misunderstood hero. Unfortunately, since Bark and Bean are so old, I couldn't find any footage for Bark, but please let me know if you're able to find any and I'll get right to work on one for him for the mega compilation video. With Bark complete, let's move on to everyone's favorite character in the series, Zavok the Zeti. What? Zavok isn't your favorite character? He only debuted in the best game ever made, Sonic Lost World, and he made a return in the actual best game ever made, Sonic Forces. Man, what a goat. Anyways, Zavok the Zeti is next to receive his kit. Starting with his standard attacks, Zavok deals a combo of punches with his Deadly Duke. His projectile attack is Dragon's Breath, which has him shooting continuous bursts of fire that deals flame damage. Moving to his abilities, Zavok can release Zeti Fire, in which he releases a large fireball that explodes, dealing extra flame damage. From the blast center, 5 smaller fireballs are generated and shoot in 5 directions outwards. Moving to his next ability, Zavok uses Zik's training to meditate, gaining health over time and an instant bubble shield. Zavok's final ability is Static Suplex, which has Zavok grab onto an enemy and fly straight up, slamming them back into the ground in an area of effect explosion that deals extra thunder damage. This will inflict grounded onto enemies, and flying characters that are caught in the path up will also be grounded and dealt damage. Moving to Zavok's passive called Electro Distortion, his manipulation over magnetic fields grants him a thunder shield for every final hit. His team up is with Dr. Eggman, in which his magnetic manipulation allows for the egg pawn spawn to auto-target enemies instead of just firing in straight lines. Finally, Zavok's ultimate is the Giant Dragon, which transforms Zavok into his final form, unleashing a barrage of flame and thunder attacks that deal significant damage and ignore elemental shields. Zavok's saving grace is his ability to use a variety of different elemental abilities, which can deal a lot of extra damage to enemies. He is a great offensive tank, able to shoot from a distance and tango up close and personal. He can also give himself a shield and boost his health on the fly, allowing for more survivability. Zavok's easy kit lands him to be a 2-star villain. With his abilities out of the way, let's watch his hexing MVP screen. Next is Chaos Zero, and he has one of my favorite ability cards. Chaos is going to be a very unique Vanguard in the fact that he has a variety of unique forms from both his abilities and team-ups. Starting with his standard attacks though, his melee attack is called Water Whip, which has Chaos transforming his arms into a whip to hit enemies. His projectile attack is Liquid Tendrils, which has Chaos extend out multiple tendrils that deal extra aqua damage, much like Venom's standard attack. Moving to his abilities, Chaos has the potential to transform his watery body into a desired shape for different effects. Form P1 has Chaos thin his body to absorb projectile attacks, after which he can release them back at enemies. Form P100 has Chaos bulk up his body to absorb all melee damage. Enemies that land 3 non-critical attacks in a certain amount of time are absorbed into Chaos for a short time. When an enemy is absorbed, all damage dealt to Chaos is mitigated directly to the enemy that is encapsulated within him, so enemies must always be paying attention to the form Chaos is in. Chaos can still move freely if an enemy is within him, and if he's quick enough, he can eject players out of his body into out-of-bounds regions. Moving to his final ability, Chaos can use Big Drip to reduce his body into a puddle increasing his movement speed. While in this state, the water spirits watch over him and grant him small healing over time. This is a fantastic ability for holding onto points as well. Chaos has no passive abilities, but he does have a couple of team-ups. His first team-up is with Tikal and Cream called New Generation Chao. Chaos is brightened up by the surviving Chao race and bestows his blessing to Cream, amplifying her healing abilities with Joy and Chocola Chao. Tikal also gains an additional 10% healing from Cream. His final team-up is my favorite, in which Sonic and Eggman each give a Chaos Emerald to Chaos. This would cosmetically change his appearance to Chaos 1 or Chaos 2, depending on how many characters are in the team-up. For each emerald that Chaos has, he gains 25 additional HP and has a 5% attack damage buff. If one character of the team-up is present, Chaos will evolve into Chaos 1 and can use an ability called Marble that has him break his body into smaller blobs that will linger on the battlefield. Enemies that walk through these blobs will be dealt damage over time, as well as movement debuff if they remain inside. If both Eggman and Sonic are present, Chaos will evolve into Chaos 2. Chaos 2 can use an ability called Vacuum, where you can suck in enemies to encapsulate them manually, without needing to tank 3 melee attacks. The only small caveat is that if Sonic uses his ultimate, Chaos will revert back to Chaos 0 for its duration, disabling the ability. Finally, and unsurprisingly, Chaos' ultimate is God of Destruction, Perfect Chaos. This transforms Chaos into his super form, flooding the entire battlefield. Yes, and I mean the entire battlefield. Flooding inflicts movement debuff, so it's great for keeping newly spawned enemies from reaching the point again. While in this form, you take control of Chaos' head, throwing down water spouts and vortices that can suck in enemies. If an enemy is caught in the center of these attacks, they are rendered immobile. Chaos can finally shoot his Hydro Laser at enemies for massive damage. Since he can't use these attacks simultaneously, it's best to throw down your vortices and water spouts first to try to render enemies immobile, and then use your Hydro Laser to finish them off. Chaos is one of the best frontline defensive tanks in the game, able to absorb projectiles and melee damage alike. These abilities, coupled with his big drip that gives him healing over time, gives him one of, if not the most survivability in the game. Players that choose Chaos must always be thinking about what type of damage they should prioritize, as well as their positioning to ensure that encapsulated enemies can be finished off quickly. This kit makes him a 3-star reformed villain. And just like that, all of our Vanguards are complete, closing out this series. Before I get to what you can expect from the future of this channel, let's take a look at Chaos's destructive MVP screen. And there we go, that is all 33 characters from Sonic the Hedgehog in Marvel Rivals. I gotta say again, thank you guys so much for all the support. It really does mean a lot to me. I put a lot of time, I already mentioned it in my first video, but I really put a lot of time into this, and to see the fruit of all the work that has been done is really incredible. You guys have written so many crazy and thoughtful responses, and I just love to see it. I love to engage with it. I will try to respond to each and every one of you that comments. So let's talk a little bit more about the mega compilation video that I have planned. As soon as we reach 1,000 subscribers, I want to drop the part 4 with all of your requests for characters that you wanted to see. And then after that, like I said before, I will release a compilation video with every single character. But not only that, since we gained so much traction with this video series, I want to go through your guys' comments and actually retroactively change some of the abilities. I've read your guys' comments and a lot of you had fantastic ideas, and I want to make sure that this is like a community project, so I'll change things that I think that are worth changing. So for the reworks in that video, I will be giving you guys credit as well. So if there was a change that you suggested and it made it into the video, I will make sure to give you guys credit on the screen. And I'm also planning to add even more sections where I talk about some limited time modes, character skins that I think could make it in the game, and another little surprise that I will save for when the video comes out. Also, once we reach 1,000 subscribers, I had an idea for a while now that I didn't want to just be a Sonic channel, so I'm going to branch out into other franchises that I love as well. I want to branch out to Nintendo, Star Wars, Ben 10, anime, all of the above. I want to talk about it right here, so subscribe so you don't miss out. Also, after this video drops, I'm going to take a little break just because this took so much time, but I will be back no doubt within the next 2 weeks. But thank you guys so much again. We're at 720 subscribers. That's insane to me. I can't wait to break 1,000. Again, your guys' comments are really what get me through the editing process and push me to keep making great videos. But that will be it for today. My name is Japes, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.